The Queen. How you doing, Lindsey?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for this interview. Let's cut to the chase. Queen of 2 miles.
It's been a crazy year.
You set a record as well?
I did in August at Spring Canyon. I set the cold bore record at 2,464 yards.
Wow.
So that
Wow.
and
Wow.
yeah.
So a little background. I mean, how does somebody like you get into ELR? Because I mean, I've been shooting for a long time, and even me, ELR is kind of like, I don't know if I'm just quite ready. And I mean, you are just over there just whooping everybody's butts. So how does somebody like you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go and just whooping all these men?
Well, it's funny because Robert and I went out to King of 2 Miles. I believe it was in 2017. We had a friend competing, and we went out just to watch. And so it was kind of an interesting introduction to go out and watch it at such a big event. But that was kind of where it started. Robert was already talking about building a 375 Chi-Tac, and I met Kelly McMillan out there, and we kind of were talking, and it was sort of funny the way it happened. Kelly was talking about he needed to sponsor more females and more law enforcement, and I was kind of halfway joking and didn't think he'd take me up on it, but I was like, well, I'm a police officer and I'm a female, you should sponsor me. And Robert was like, yeah, she's actually fixing to build a 375 Chi-Tac. So Kelly gave me the stock for this build, which it's so bittersweet not having him around to see everything I've accomplished this year. It's pretty devastating, but that was kind of where it started. Built the gun. I have high hopes for competing. I really wanted to go take it out to ranches and shoot rocks on cliff faces. That was sort of my goal, was just to have fun with it. But I went to my first match and I was hooked.
So, yeah, Kelly was notorious for trying to bring new people into the game, and obviously you know that. But yeah, he I'm gonna say he touched a lot of lives, especially in the shooting community. He was extremely generous, and like as you already know, he was always trying to bring in law enforcement, women, and just kids. I mean, he was super generous with the youth. The under 25 or under 21 teams. He was anyway. But yeah. So sad that he left way too soon.
Yes.
I mean, like you said, I mean, what is this? 4 years later, you are just
Exactly. I didn't even, that was then, and I didn't even compete until 2019. We had a pretty full season of competing 2019, and I've learned a lot since then. It was kind of funny. I was watching some videos the other day of like my first match, and I was like, wow, I've come a long ways. Like, I am so much more confident and so much more in control of what's going on. It looked like a cluster at my first match. But yeah, it's so. And then 2020, we only made it to one match before COVID shut everything down. But we really just kind of devoted this year to really chasing it, and it was a lot of hard work, but it definitely paid off for sure.
yeah. I'm gonna say. So you decided to build a plinking rifle, right? That was kind of your goal. And,
Yeah, it was just really to have fun and be able to shoot far. Sometimes we get access to ranches where we can, shoot far. And I've competed before in other stuff. We've done some like club PRS matches, and I have a dasher that I take to a little 500-yard match and go play with, but nothing really serious until this.
Yeah, you used to message me for reloading tips, and yeah, again, it's like you used to message me and ask me for reloading tips on a dasher, and then next thing I know, you shooting a 375 Chi-Tac at 2 miles and beyond. So that's quite a leap from one to the other. You know what I mean?
It really is. It really is for sure.
So how did you even get into this circle, like the ELR? I mean, I imagine Alamo Precision.
Yeah, through Robert. This was something that really sparked his interest, and once I saw the gun that he built and shot it a few times, I was like, okay, like this is actually really cool. So that was just through him. I really hadn't even heard about it until we went out there to King of 2 Miles and watched it. And I was like, wow, that's crazy how far they're shooting. And it was amazing to see.
Yeah, I mean, what gives you that push? Because I mean, being there and again seeing how far they shoot, was part of you intimidated by the distance or by the even I mean, because you have all these all these world, like Paul Phillips,
Right.
Derek Webster. I'm not Derek Webster. Derek Rogers. You have Robert Bradley. I mean, all these guys that've been shooting for a very long time, and of course they're winning, right? Did at any point were you intimidated or thought, well, I'm just gonna have fun and I'm not really gonna be competitive, but I'm just gonna be in the mix? Or what was your initial goal that you had?
I don't really know that I had one in the beginning. I mean, it was really just to go and have fun, and then I'm kind of competitive by nature, so I don't think I really had a choice. When I started to be a little bit successful, it was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I'd like to see how far I can take this, and there was a little bit of me that when we went out there, it was a little bit intimidating. It's a little bit cliquey at first until you get to know people and stuff. And it was kind of like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to come out here as a girl and really show out. And the women did amazing this year. Ray, Jacqueline, and I all made it into the finals. So there was actually 3 females finals this year, which was awesome. And they both had strong finishes. So, us girls are going to come and try and make our mark.
I mean, it's no secret that women really do well in shooting sports. I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, I've of course we have theories, right?
Right.
I think men have a lot more ego that they bring to the line. They bring to the line with them, and they just can't fathom not shooting well. And
Right.
I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, where obviously I don't know, but I'm assuming the women are more like, what the hell, let's have fun and
Right.
let it rip, which I think keeps them calm. And I don't know. Is that true?
I think that's a huge part of it. And I'm a police officer, so I'm used to being in a male-dominated environment. So I kind of try really hard to ignore the egos and ignore all the other stuff that goes on, and just go out there and have fun. I put pressure on myself, and I'm very disappointed when I make mental mistakes or screw up or whatever. But at the end of the day, you want to have fun out there. If it's not fun, I mean, it's just way too much money to spend to do it.
So what's it like around your colleagues at work to find out that the Queen of 2 Miles is? I mean, do they even comprehend?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because the sergeant of the motors unit said, I took all my guys and we went to El Dorado, which is a major overpass on 75 in our city. And he's like, we went up there and we pulled up on Google Maps and we figured out how far it was away that you shot. And we were like, holy cow. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. Everyone's pretty proud. So it's been neat.
Well, that's good. That's good that you have the support. Yeah, 2 miles is a long. Well, okay, so explain to me the course of fire, because I don't understand it, and so maybe maybe this interview can bring more people into the game, because I truly, and that's part of the reason that I've been invited by a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think Paul Phillips was the first one. Chase Stroud's like, you gotta come out and shoot ELR. Robert Brandley, Robert has asked me multiple times. Mark Fox. I mean, I think even David Tubb asked me one time, and I'm like, I'm so busy with F-Class that I just don't really have time. I started playing around with PRS a little bit, but it was nothing serious. But part of it is I really don't understand the format. So maybe you can enlighten me on how the scoring system works.
Yeah, that's still a bit of a mystery to everyone. But
Well, then there you go.
There's an algorithm they use, and I think there's some secret sauce that goes in there. But so basically, there were 77 shooters. So the preliminaries were split into 2 days. So you went out there on day one, not even knowing if you were shooting that day. So the cold bore target was, I think, at 1,572 yards. So you start out with one shot on the cold bore, and then there was 3 other targets. And it was hit to progress. So you had a total, let's see, you went up to the line with, get this right here, I think it was 3 shots on either 3 shots on either of the other 4 targets. I'm trying to remember. I went up the line with 13 rounds. I'm trying to remember exactly how it was. But 1 shot at the cold bore, and then 3 shots at target 1, but you had to hit to move on. So if you didn't hit it within 3 shots, you had to keep shooting at it until you moved on to the next target. So if you used more than 3 rounds on each target, by the time you got to target 4, you might not have any shots left. So that was how day 1 worked, and day 1 and 2. And then the finals, there was no cold bore. It was 15 rounds, 5 shots at each target, and it was still hit to progress. So if you didn't get your target hit within the first 5 shots.
When you say hit to move, hit to move on, you only have to hit it one time and then you can move?
No, you would fire all the allocated rounds at the target.
Was it 3?
Yes. Okay. 3 on day 1, 5 on day 2.
Oh, I see how it works. So you get 3 rounds, and the idea obviously is to hit it 3 times, right?
Right.
But you have to at least hit it once in order to progress to the next target.
Exactly. And then your hits, obviously, first round impact has, I believe it's that number of points times the distance. So I actually have the score sheet here so I can speak somewhat accurately. Oh, no, I don't. That's
the way I think Chase Stroud explained it to me is you have 3 rounds. So if you make the first round impact at 1,500, it's 3 times the 50. So it'd be 4,500. The second one would be 3,000, and the last one would be 1,500. Correct?
That's correct. But then they would also throw some stuff in there, like if you had time left over, they took the number of seconds you had left over and added that into your score in some way too. And I don't know exactly what the math or algorithm is that they used, but we tried to add up scores and it wasn't matching with what was on the score sheet. So there is some trickery that goes in there.
Magic.
Yes, exactly. They have a special spreadsheet that they plug everything into.
So get coffee for the scorekeeper.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking. Okay, so you go to your first target. You bring 13 rounds. There's 3 targets or 4?
4.
4 targets because they had a cold bore.
Cold bore, and then
so the cold bore, you take only 1 shot.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then there's 12 shots remaining for the no.
Yeah, because there's 4 targets on day 1.
4 plus the cold bore, or including the cold bore?
Including.
So how many times do you shoot at the cold bore?
1 time, and then move on. 1 shot at the cold bore, and then
you get
3 shots at the other 4 targets.
That would be 9.
3 times 4?
So there's 5 targets.
Nope, 4. 3 times.
The cold bore plus 4 more.
And then 3 shots at those other 4 targets.
Okay, so there's 5 targets. Wow. See, this is confusing. So, okay, let me make sure I understand. You have a cold bore shot. That's 1 target. And then you have 4 other targets, 3 shots each.
Yes.
So there's a total of 5 targets. Or do you...
5 targets total, but we always just refer to the cold bore as the cold bore.
Correct. So I'm just trying to understand. So you do have 5 targets total.
Yes.
The cold bore plus 4 others. Now, the cold bore, is that additional points, or how does that work? I'm assuming.
It was additional points, and I hit the cold bore, so that was really beneficial.
Yeah, I imagine every time. Well, most people think it's beneficial in points, but it's also beneficial in verifying your dope, right?
It is, for sure. And the way that they had the cold bore set, there was nothing but vegetation behind it. So if you didn't hit it, you weren't getting any feedback off that target whatsoever.
Yeah, impacts are really good. Well, it's mainly for feedback, especially if you're doing a hit to move on, because obviously it verifies your data. You're like, okay, my data's good. That means you can trust it moving past that, and you also can trust whatever windage you applied.
Yeah.
Obviously, were they just straight line, or were they scattered sideways, side to side?
The cold bore was down low, like you've shot out there. So the cold bore was just like literally behind the F-class scoring yard, and then you start moving up the mountain. So,
but kind of sideways. So
it was up at a diagonal, and then you had to swing back to the right and then back to the left.
So your wind is different for every target because you're swinging this way, you're swinging that way. That's why I'm asking. So
and that's one of the challenges is the transitions there are challenging because some of them were huge, especially on the finals.
Yeah, because your wind is different depending. For example, if you have a head-on wind at this target, and then you switch this one, now you have a 45-degree, half value wind, and then you go, and now you have it the other way. Yeah, it's sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was a challenge. That facility is always challenging. The wind there is pretty crazy.
And this is the Whittington Center, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, how did it go on that your first time? Your first cold bore plus your 4 target. How did that go?
I felt like I did really well. I ended up in 4th place after the first day. I had some good impacts. I didn't lose any shots. I managed to make all of my impacts within the first 3 rounds. So I wasn't short when I got to the final target. I had 3 shots at it, so that was good. So I was 4th after the first day, and then once everybody shot, I dropped down to like 9th place. So
they you hit every target?
Yes.
Well, that has to feel good.
It did. It was a really good first day for sure. I felt pretty good going in.
How far is the farthest target?
On day 1, standby. I think I have everything in my phone still. I think it was out to maybe 25-ish hundred on the first day.
So do you have a support team while you're shooting, or is this all on your own?
This is a team match where you're allowed 1 spotter. So Robert was my spotter, and he did an amazing job for me. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
All he had to do is call the wind.
Well, and misses. He's telling me where to move to.
Yeah, the misses are. This is what I talked about. I talked to Paul about it. And is if you miss and you don't see it, you're lost. It could have been because now you don't know which way to go.
Absolutely, and I try really hard to get. My gun moves me a little bit. It's usually coming off target, but I try really hard to get right back on target, which with the flight time in this type of a sport, you have time to get back on target and see my own misses. And I try to work using my spotter as more of a backup, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you just don't see it like they do.
Yeah, well, they have better glass. They're sitting higher up. I don't know that it matters when you're at that distance. For us, it matters. We shoot 1,000. We only shoot 1,000 yards.
Right.
But being low to the ground, the mirage is worse than when you're sitting up high. And of course, the spotting scope, the glass is better, and it's plus there's no recoil, right? They just
watching the whole thing.
Watching the whole. I imagine you guys can follow. I imagine you guys can't follow the trace, right? Because I imagine that trace just goes up into the atmosphere.
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. When I'm spotting, sometimes on a good day I can see trace pretty good, and some days I'm like I don't see anything. And then sometimes you're shooting like so high that the trace is up in the sky with blue behind it, and you're not.
That's
seeing
what I'm
anything.
saying. I just wow. So you get all your impacts. How are you feeling at that point?
I felt pretty good. I was really happy with, like I said, Robert did a great job spotting, and we worked together really well as a team. And so I was feeling pretty good after day 1. And then I was really worried on day 2 because more people were shooting, and I was like, well, I'm in 4th place, but I could get bumped out of the finals. And then we finally got the score sheets in, and I made it through into the finals.
Okay, so how many people go to the finals?
15. They take the top 15. And it's a percentage. I think it's, they take a certain percent into it, the finals, and that's what it ended up being. I think it's 20% maybe.
Okay, so day 1, you were below mid-pack. Because if they take 15, you say you were 9th?
Well, I say day 1, but there's 2 days of qualifications. So after day 1, I was 4th, and then after day 2, once everyone had shot their first round, I was 9th. So.
Okay, when you say everybody had but it's only 1 round, correct? It just takes 2 days.
Yes, it takes 2 days because there's 77 people to go through.
Okay, so you were fourth on day one, but only, let's say, half the field had shot.
Yeah.
And day two, some kept, shooting
Mm-hmm.
slightly better. So yeah, I can see how that can be, I don't know, a little nerve-wracking to see.
It was.
Because,
Well, and Robert shot on day two, and for me, spotting is the most stressful part of this entire. I've really struggled with it. I wasn't good at it when we started. I was really kind of terrible, and like I would see it, and I would in my head know what the call was, but it was, I don't know. I'd struggle to compute, like, okay, you need to come up this many minutes, or it's just, I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't quick enough, and there was a lot of times where I was like, I didn't see anything. But this year, I really committed to sitting behind the glass a lot and spending a lot of time watching and listening to what other people were calling, and then coming up in my head and going, okay, do I agree with that? Do I not agree with that? What would I have said?
Mm-hmm.
And it really, really helped. So that was, I was nervous, but I did a good job, so it was good.
Good. So how did Robert do?
Well, he had a little.
I like how you just hesitate.
He was shooting great. He shot very, very well. He got a little, had trouble on target 2, and took more than 3 shots to get an impact. So he moved forward at a disadvantage because he only had one shot left for target 4. And he got to target 3, and he hit like 6 MOA high. And I'm like, I was really proud of myself for even seeing that. I was like, you're 6 MOA high, I think. And he looked down and he's like, oh my gosh, I wrote down my dope for target 4 on target 3, and I didn't write down anything for target, he wrote down the dope for target 4 on target 3 and had no dope for target 3. And so he came down 6 and finally he had impacts on there. And then the frustrating part was when he got to target 4, he had a first round impact. And if we hadn't struggled with target 2, there's no doubt in my mind that he would have had more impacts and would have made it to the finals. So it's just how it goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, wow. That has to be stressful.
He ended up like 25th or something in his first King of 2 Miles. So, I mean, you can't be disappointed with that. That's still a strong finish. And
how much time do you have?
I believe it was 10 minutes for the first round.
Okay, 10 minutes, and you have your cold war plus 4 targets.
Mm-hmm.
3 shots each. So that's a total of 13 shots. So you still have to get them off every 30 seconds. And how long does it take to get there? It takes half that just to get there.
It does take some time. I mean, some of them I think it's somewhere between 8 and 11 seconds is probably.
That's my point. So you have 30 seconds per shot, and a third of that is just waiting for the bullet to get there.
Right. And I ended up with, I think, 3 minutes left. So,
wow,
I run through it pretty quick.
Just machine gunning.
Well, if you get your wind call, though, I mean, you run.
Well, if you make an impact, it's just.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So do you shoot and rack the bolt right away, or do you shoot and wait for the impact?
I shoot and eject my round and get back on target, and wait to see what's going on before, and then load another round.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, because you're also trying to spot your own shots, correct?
Yeah.
So do you shoot? And then stay behind the scope and wait for the impact before you cycle your bolt, or do you shoot and immediately cycle your bolt and then get back on the rifle?
I think I shoot and get back on target. I don't know.
No, that's good, because that often happens. Like, people have often asked me, like, and I'm going to ask you, and you're probably not going to know the answer because I don't know the answer. They're like, what's your how do you control your breathing when you shoot? And I'm like, I don't know. I just shoot. It's just one of those things that you don't think about, but whatever it is, it works.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting, because there's a lot of time just for the bullet to get there.
There is, for sure. And I think in the finals, they gave us like 1 extra minute because we had 15 rounds instead of 13. So. Like
1 minute?
1 minute.
Like 1 literal minute? So yes. 11 minutes?
Yes.
Wow. Very generous of them. So, okay, so now you make it past the first stage. What happens on the second one?
So the second day, or the final day, was really interesting.
So there's only 2 stages?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was so once one everyone runs through one round, and then the finals is the other round. So the conditions were interesting on the finals. Not to take anything away from everyone's accomplishments, because some people shot really well, but we had incredibly mild conditions for the finals. We really did. As far as wind goes out there, it was pretty mild. But the people, we got out there and then got our order of shooting, and I was shooting 12th out of 15, and I was like, oh great, I'm 12th. By the time we get to me, the winds of New Mexico are going to stir up, and I'm going to have a real challenge on my hands. But it turned out to be good luck, because target 2 was sitting in some shadows. And I went up there and was watching, they have target cameras on everything. And so they set it up to where you can watch the shooter and see the target cameras in a little viewing area. And we were seeing what was happening on target 2. And it was in so much shadow that the spotters couldn't see misses. And there was a lot of people who, unfortunately, because of the shadows, didn't get past target 2. And it was so frustrating, because on the target camera, we could kind of see some dust come up and some feedback, and their spotters couldn't see anything. It was just a giant shadow. And by the time I got up there, it started to move away, so we were able to see misses.
So the cameras are only for the spectators, not for the shooters?
Not for the spotters at all. No, not for the spotters or the shooters. Yeah.
Okay. So the spotter and the shooter, they have to only rely on their optics.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let's go back to your cold bore shot, because right now when you said the wind was mild, it got me to thinking, okay, what does that mean for you guys? Because for us, mild wind, you hold half MOA or 1 MOA. For you guys, mild, what does that mean in terms of, for example, your cold bore shot? What was your windage that you applied at that cold bore shot?
I think it was 1 MOA.
That's it? Well, it's a lot at that distance, right?
It is, yeah. Well, it's
only. You said it was 1,500 yards.
15.
Okay, well, it's not that bad. I mean, it's 500 yards more than we shoot, but you also have a lot more horsepower.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about at the day 2? Oh, you said it was also mild, right?
On day 2 it was mild. I was holding. I don't think on day 2. I don't think I ever had more than maybe 1.5.
Wow.
Maybe 2 dialed in.
And how wide is the target?
The targets are 1 MOA tall by 2 MOA wide.
So sorry, but the math in my head tells me that nobody should have missed ever if there's only 2 MOA worth of wind, because you hold left edge and you send it, or right, whatever, if you have a 2 MOA target. But obviously, I'm sure it's not that easy.
We've been out, so there's 2 facilities there at Whittington, and Spring Canyon is the other extreme long range facility or range there. And we've been out there before when I think we've had 12 MOA of wind. So it's pretty. It just depends.
And I mean, you're shooting a mild cartridge, right, compared to some of the other.
Comparatively, yeah.
Because I mean, you're only shooting a tiny weeny 375, right?
Just a little baby.
That's crazy. Because I was talking to Paul, and he said that's what he used to use, and then he moved to the 416, and he thinks that's the round.
Well, it has its advantages. I mean, it makes more splash, so you're going to have more feedback. So there's definitely an advantage to a 416.
So day 2. So the thing about Raton that most people that have never been there don't realize is you want to shoot early in the morning or late in the evening, because about noon, that's when it gets wicked. Right? So
very accurate.
Drawing 12th, you don't want to draw 6th.
No.
Or 7th or whatever, because those guys those shooters get to shoot about midday and about 1 p.m. And the reason I know perfect, or the reason I know the time so accurately is because in Raton, when they do the Spirit of America, you shoot and then they have a lunch break. And usually right about the time the lunch break is over, everything starts to fly off the tables. And we joke because it's like, okay, that's cue to get back to shooting, because about 1 p.m. something can get pretty wicked. But it can also be dead still, like crazy.
And at 3 o'clock, it rains every single
Oh,
day. You can
yep.
almost set your watch by that.
Yeah, it's crazy how it is. So day 2, you finally get to shoot. You see that shadow move away from the target. Did you notice that before you got to shoot?
We were watching it, hoping. Like I was
Okay.
like going, okay, come on, Shadow, move, move, move.
So obviously you were worried about it because you
Oh yeah.
saw the other shooters have issues with
Well,
it.
one of my teammates got up there and shot, and I think he was maybe sixth or so, or maybe earlier than that.
Like
and
I said.
they just struggled, and it was so frustrating. You know, he's worked so hard this year, and they just had no feedback. He didn't get past that target, and it's just sad to see that happen. But it's just Mother Nature. You can't do anything about it.
So do you have a strategy going in? So for example, again, in my very uneducated mind, when you said it's about 2 MOA, it's like, well, the target's 2 MOA, the wind drift is 2 MOA, give it about a 1 MOA of light. I say of light, just hold 3 and you should be able to, hold 1 past the target, you should be able to catch it. But obviously you don't know that until after you make an impact.
Exactly.
Sounds easy, now, but do you have a strategy going in saying, okay, we're going to bracket the wind, or do you guys bracket the wind, or what do you do?
Honestly, Robert makes a lot of the wind calls. That's one of the things that I just haven't quite, like, I'll try and get in my head what I think it's going to be, but I always check with him because I'm like, I'm not good at that yet. I'll get there and I'll watch the mirage and I'll see what it looks like it's doing and make my guesses, but he's way better at that than me. And so it's a lot of it is just shooting out there. And like, I keep a record book of every time we shoot out there, and I write in there what my Kestrel calls for on elevation, and then I write what it actually takes, and trying to get, some documentation. And so when I go back to those matches, I can be like, okay, I remember what it looked like, and this is what it ended up being.
Yeah. So day 2, first target, what was the distance?
So the last target on day 1 was 2550. I think day 2 it started out at like 27 something.
And then it just gets farther.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 miles is how many yards?
3250.
3250.
Mm-hmm.
Were you guys shooting out that far?
Yeah.
I would hope so, right?
Well, yeah. The last target was 3250. So we started at 2727 was target 1 on the finals, and then it was 3167, and then it was 3521.
Wow. So past 2 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to your first target on the last. I mean, at this point, right? It's make it or break it, right? I mean, that's it. Just what's it like? I mean, are you nervous? Have you ever? Is this your first King of 2 Miles?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I was nervous. I was in 9th place, and honestly, I went into it and I was like, if I can just stay in the top 10 for my first time competing at this match, I'm going to be completely satisfied. If I can go up and make the transitions, because in the finals, the transitions were kind of huge. I mean, you were swinging from left to right, moving quite a bit. And I was like, if I can just stay calm, find all my targets, and, do my best, I'm going to be happy with it. If I can make a top 10, that's going to be great. And so it worked out a little bit better than that. But
Well, you did get top 10.
I did.
So you go to your first target.
Too, Ryan Chaney had such a great run on day 1. I don't think anybody thought anyone could catch him. I mean, I think he was 20,000 points ahead of me, which was a huge thing to catch up to. I mean, he nearly ran it on day 1 and had very few misses. So I didn't actually think anyone would be able to beat him. He shoots excellent, and I was like, he's going to go up there and clean it and win. So, and he had a good run. I had more impacts on that third target. That's all it was.
So you go to your first target on day 2. You've been obviously nervous watching the other shooters miss, and so what happens then? You just lay down and
I just get down and do my thing. see. Nope, that's the preliminaries. I was gonna see if I had all the impacts. I have it in my phone somewhere, but not handy.
So you lay down, right, and then Robert, does he give you the win call, or do you guys work together on the first one, or do you guys work it together to, again, do you guys come to the line with a plan and say, okay, this is going to be our dope?
We do.
First target is going to be 2 MOA, the second one's going to be 3, the other one's going to be whatever.
Most of the time, it's like, let's shoot at the first target with this win call and see what happens from there. And then a lot of the times, when I'm transitioning, I'm like, okay, so on wind, am I adding more? Or do you think we're about the same? Or, he'll tell me to add another 1 or another 2 to it or whatever, and we'll kind of run it that way.
Do you dial the wind or just hold off?
I usually dial. And then if I only need to move like a little bit, I always dial my elevation, but on wind, I'll start out with something dialed in there. And then if I need to make a big move, I'll usually dial. But if it's just like a half MOA or something, I'll usually just hold.
Okay. So you come to the line 12 rounds, right? 4 targets? Or do you guys also have a cold bore on day 2?
No, there was no cold bore. So it was 5 shots at each of the 3 targets.
Oh, so there was only 3 targets on day 2.
Yes.
Okay. And how were your impacts? Like, did you hit right away, or did you miss and panic? No, what happened?
I had a second round impact on the first target.
You had a second round impact?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you missed. This is what I'm wondering. And what happens then? I mean, because all this pressure just built up. I mean, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
You get to the line, all this pressure built up, right? And then you're like, okay, this is what's gonna happen. And of course, the worst thing you can do, and you know this, or the worst thing that can happen is you watch the other shooters struggle, because then you go, they're struggling, and I mean, it's hard to say, it's hard to be super confident. Even if you are, it's still hard to think that your run's going to go better than theirs, right? Because they're struggling, and maybe shooters that you've seen totally kill it, and now they're struggling, and you go, if they're struggling, what's going to happen to me?
Oh
no! What do you do? So anyway, you lay down.
Well, let me back up, because I did something different on this one.
Okay.
It's super goofy and a lot of woo-woo hippie stuff, but I don't know. It might have worked. It might be. So I ran track in high school, and our track coach used to do a deal with us before our track meets. And he would take us all in the gym, and he'd turn out the lights, and he'd put on music, and he always played the Rocky theme song.
Okay.
And he would do this visualization exercise with us, and he would go through the entire race, and he would go through, this is what you're feeling, this is what you're thinking, this is what's happening, and this is you crossing the finish line in first place. And so I was kind of a little bit stressed about this whole thing. And I thought, you know what? That always worked for me in track. I'm going to try this. So when we got out there, everyone was getting out and getting ready, and I figured out where I was shooting a little later. So I sat in the truck, and I put my earbuds in, and I pulled up the Rocky theme song. And I sat there and just visualized the entire thing. And I visualized my transitions, and I visualized every bullet impacting the target. And I don't know if it made a difference, but I was pretty calm when I went up there to shoot.
Okay.
In my mind, I had already been successful.
Right. So again, this is why I'm asking this, right? Because this is huge. This is the mental strength is huge, right? You came again, because you had to be freaking out, and then you had to do something about it and go, you know what? It's just a shoot. Right?
Well, it is. And I think I used to get more nervous when I started, because there was, not knowing what to expect and stuff. And now that I'm more comfortable and I've shot more matches and I know how it goes, there's not anything, I think I am calmer. And I don't know, maybe some of the law enforcement, like I look at some of these guys get up on the line and they're like shaking. And I'm like, dude, it's a match. You're supposed to be having fun. If it's that causes that much stress, like you shouldn't be doing this. Go play golf or something. And to me, I'm out there to enjoy myself and have fun with my friends and be competitive. But I don't know. I mean, being a police officer and seeing real life chaos and real life, like real things that really matter and really are going to change your life, this is fun. So I think I have a little bit of the mental game mastered in that sense. And that's not to say I don't get flustered. I do. But I don't think I quite put as much stress on myself as some people do.
Yeah. So you missed the first shot.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay.
You're like all this visualization, Rocky, and then
right.
You take your first shot and you miss. Adrian! What happens at that point? So, but I mean, most people would think it's like, oh, total chaos, but there's no time at that point, right? It's
no.
like you miss. Robert's, working out. Did he see the impact or the miss?
Yes, he did.
That's huge.
We went to one match this year where we had like no calls on everything. It was miserable and just because of the conditions. And no, he saw every single miss. He did a great job. So he got me on target. I had 2 impacts on the first target. On the second target, I had the first and last round impact. And then target 3, I missed the first shot. He saw it, gave me a great call, and I had 3 impacts in a row on the third. Third.
That had to feel good.
That was crazy. Well, and I didn't know I had 3 because they didn't ring the impact buzzer for, I think, the third shot. And as soon as I got off the line, one of the girls, Amber, came up to me and she was like, oh my gosh, you need to go contest that because we didn't see a miss on the target camera. And so I did go and contest it, but apparently they had already written down a question mark by that one. They were already planning on reviewing it. So. Okay.
So, but this is one of those sports where you don't know if you won, right?
No, not right away.
You just shoot, and then obviously you're happy with your performance. But did it had to push you to first.
Right. Well, I got off the line and we were talking and Robert looked at me and he goes, I think you just won this thing. And I thought, no, I mean, there were still 3 people to shoot and Brian had a great run. He had impacts on all the targets. He had, I think, 1 impact on the final target. And I was like, I don't think I could pass him at points. Like, I just don't. And
had he shot already or he still hadn't shot?
I believe he had already shot and he had a good solid run. So
you passed him. Did you know you had passed him yet?
No, because like I said, when they do the scoring, it's like an algorithm. So, your time goes into it and all that other stuff. And it was probably a good maybe 10 minutes after everyone had shot. And Alex, the match director, comes up to me and he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I thought it was about my contested shot. And he's like, walk with me. And we started going over towards the Eagle's nest. And he's like, I need to make sure this crown will fit you. And I was like,
that had to feel good.
Oh, it was crazy. It was amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. That's good stuff. So, Queen of 2 Mile. Now they have to change the name.
Well, I told all the guys next year they all have to shoot in dresses. They're in the pants back.
And Rocky. Now you let out the secret.
I know, right?
So,
hey, if it works, it works. If someone else wants to do it, I don't know. It's something different to try. I just thought I'm going to change things up a bit.
You just need something to calm yourself down.
Right.
You need to occupy your mind because if not, so I had this interview with Mr. Basham, who I don't know if you heard about the book With Winning in Mind, and it's a mental book about shooting. It's about winning, right? And but anyway, I interviewed him, and he talks about how whenever you're having bad thoughts or negative thoughts or whatever, the only reason you're having those thoughts is because you have nothing else to think about.
Right.
You have to give yourself something else to think about, like you did. You started visualizing. It just gave you something else to do. Because otherwise, you're just gonna sit there and just worry.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot to that, and I need to read the book. But it's you have to do something with all that energy, and if your mind will automatically try to go to negative places. So if you just keep positive and do the best you can.
Yeah, I mean, if you have nothing else to think about, it's all going to be bad thoughts. And your brain is so powerful that it can, like David Goggins says, you have a tactical disadvantage against your brain because it knows every weakness that you have.
This is true.
It's going to use it against you. So
very true.
Occupy yourself. So 375. What's so obviously a Macmillan stock.
Macmillan stock. It's a Stiller Action, a TAC 408, KMP barrel, Terminator T5 brake on there. And then obviously they changed the rules, and so I normally shoot it off of a Phoenix, but I went to an AccuTac bipod for this match.
What were the rules?
They made a rule about the width of the base of your bipod, and it had to be within a certain number of inches, so we couldn't use the Phoenixes anymore that were too wide.
Wow. Okay.
So you throw that in there on top of everything, because I'd only used that AccuTac one time before that match. We went out and had a practice session. I was like, okay. I mean, it feels okay. I think I'm sold. It did great for me at this match.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys are shooting 375 bullets, all late turned and
yeah, they're cutting edge 400 grain. Mm-hmm.
Cutting edge. Mm-hmm. How fast are you pushing them?
About 2970 to 2980 is about where I am with fun.
Is that mild, or is that about where it's at, or is it hot? I don't know how it is.
That's pretty mild. There's some people that are pushing them a little bit faster. We tried to run them a little bit faster, but this just works. We've got a pretty good wide node in there, and so that's what's working for us.
Yeah, if it tunes, it tunes. I mean, you can't beat consistency.
Right.
So, what's next? I mean, are you building another rifle, or you need a bigger one now? What's it like? I mean, because I am, trust me, I've been a shooter for a long time, and every time, whether you win or lose, the answer is a new rifle.
Oh, of course. We've talked about moving to some variation of a 416. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but we definitely as a team see a benefit of the 416 having more feedback. I think I'll always keep this 375 though. If I'm not running it, it'll be a backup for sure. So right now it just probably needs a new barrel. When I first built this rifle, I didn't know enough to actually keep a round count. So I have no idea how many rounds I've shot through it. If you look at it through a bore scope, it looks like 12 miles of bad road, but it's still shooting really good. So I'm like, well, I might have one more match in it. I don't know. So
when you guys develop loads, do you do that or
I do.
Robert?
We do it together. I live on 100 acres, so I've got 100 and a 500 yard range here at the house. So it's pretty convenient to be able to load up in the house and go right out and shoot, come back and make a bunch of trips back and forth all day. It's usually how that.
So you guys work up a load at 100, or you go straight to 500? 100.
We do 100. And my 500 yard range is hit or miss because it's across a creek, so I don't have access to it all the time, so you can't count on that. Yeah. The first match we ever went to, I had literally developed a load for this rifle, shot it at 100 yards, and had never shot it at distance before, and just went out there with the generic drag model that they have for that bullet, and did pretty darn well. So, and I was like, this is silly. Why am I shooting a match with this thing? I've never shot it at distance, but yeah, it just works. If you can be about half MOA at 100 with a good SD, preferably under 5, it's pretty good. That's kind of what we aim for.
Yeah, I mean, I do everything at 100, and it, as you know, it works.
Yeah.
If it doesn't shoot at 100,
right,
it's not gonna shoot further out. I mean, some people will dispute that, but until I'm proven wrong, that's what I'm sticking to. So, what kind of twist? Do you know the twist on that barrel?
It's 1 and 8.
1 and 8 twist. So, I was going to ask you the barrel life, but you don't know.
What we've been seeing is somewhere around, so we're probably 750, 800 would be accurate, and I feel like I have to be there.
Okay, so they do burn out quite fast.
Pretty fast. There's some people who've had barrels that have lasted longer, but that's, I think, what we've kind of been seeing with them.
Well, you want, and of course, do you practice, or how do you practice for this thing?
This year's been tough. We had a range near us that went out to 2,000 yards, and they shut down at the beginning of the year. So Triple C shut down. So we're like, oh no. So up until August of this year, we didn't practice. All of our practice was at matches. We had nowhere to go that wasn't 8 or more hours away, and so we would just go to matches and hope for the best. we did go out to a ranch before King of 2 Miles, like two weeks before, and did have a practice training day to see how everything was running and sort of really practice some transitions, because we were all a little bit worried about, making transitions and not timing out and stuff. So
transitions are, I don't think people really understand what that means when you make a transition. Because, in PRS, I've done enough PRS to know a transition, something you have to adjust your bipod or whatever.
Right.
But for you guys, do you come to the line with multiple bags, or what do you do? I imagine you have to change.
We have a lot of that, especially on the first day, because the cold bore was so low, and then you were just climbing up the mountain. So we use rubber mats in the front, and so we had some smaller rubber mats we used in the back. And like on the first day, I think in the first target I had like 6 little rubber mats piled up underneath my rear bag, and I just got up there and I was like, okay, there's cold bore, and then if I move to target 2, I'm still okay, and then I need to pull 2 rubber mats out and pull 2 more rubber mats out and it actually went really smoothly. But yeah, there's a lot of moving around, and my goal, what I wanted to do was to just be able to adjust my rear bag and my rear mats and not have to crawl up to the front and be lifting my gun up and shoving more mats under there. And that worked really well for me.
Right. Now, what about your field of view? What's it like looking through your scope? Do you have a massive field of view, or is it?
I usually have mine around 15 power. So
15 power.
So pretty good field of view. And obviously when you're transitioning, I'm dialing it way out to get my transition, so it's easy to find my target, and then going back to 15.
Yeah, so you zoom out and then you zoom back in.
Exactly.
Wow. So you use a Charlie or whatever they call that thing?
I have a Night Force prism wedge.
Okay.
So it's just a prism, and it adds 100 MOA.
Does it add any magnification or no?
Nope.
Oh,
not at all.
Okay. So, wow, 15 power out to what, 3,500 yards?
And I think I probably ended up closer to 20 power on those farther targets, but not any farther than that. Not any magnification than that.
Wow.
And I only needed that prism, so I only needed it for the last 2 targets. So you add that in there with everything else. You're shooting target 1, then you're crawling up there and putting your prism on.
Okay, yeah, that just hit home when you said only needed it for the 2. I was trying to process that. I'm like, and you finally said it. So you didn't have it on. You shoot your first 2 targets, then you go and clamp it on, and then you have to compensate whatever.
Right. So go back to 0 and then start over. And that's been my struggle of like writing down my dope and being like, okay, when I add my prism, then I need to,
subtract. You have to.
Exactly.
Have to go back down. So for people that don't know what that is, it's can you explain what it is?
It's just it looks almost like a scope cap thing, but it's just
it shifts the image, right?
Yeah, it just shifts the image 100 MOA, and so I have an extended rail that goes out in front of my scope, and so it's a pick rail, and it just clicks on there, and then it sits in front of the scope and does its magnification or its shift, and it's magic. Yeah,
but it's magic. But what I'm saying is, for example, let's say you're shooting at 150 MOA, right? And your next target requires 225, right? You come down to 125 and you add your 100 prism, right? So instead of going up, you go down because you just added 100.
Exactly.
So you have to come back down on your scope, add the prism, and wow. What was at your farthest target? Do you remember your elevation? How much you had dialed in?
A
lot.
Lot.
You sit there and just go like that.
Yeah, a lot.
To the turret.
I don't think it was over 200, but I feel like it was really close. It was a lot.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's up there. I mean, it's a long poke.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's next? I mean, obviously defend the title, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Has there ever been a back-to-back winner?
No, I don't think there has. So maybe we'll try that.
Well, I mean, obviously, right? You're
Yeah.
not just gonna let them take it.
No, not at all. No, because they have to wear dresses until a man wins. That's the Lindsey rule.
Well,
Uh,
never
no,
mind.
we're gonna chase the ELR stuff real hard again next year. We didn't get. I love the Night Force Steel Challenge that they have up in Wyoming. We went a couple of years ago. We didn't go this year because we were focusing on the ELR stuff, and I want to get back up there. I love that match. I've shot it once, and it was just so fun. And it's not really true. I mean, it's I think they got to like 2,100, but it's fun. So I'll go to that one.
Do they have any matches around here? Texas, for example?
Yeah, so there's some in South Texas, and then we put on a match in Mingus, which is just on the other side of Weatherford at Greystone Castle, and that was awesome. We can go out to 2 miles there, and that's it's a beautiful facility, and it's a really fun match. We're gonna have at least one next year. We might try and do 2.
Okay, so there's not that many matches even now.
Not in Texas. There's one every month up at Spear Point in Kansas. We did go to Clark's Knob match up in Kansas last year, but we haven't been to Spear Point yet, and I think we're gonna make a point of getting up there for a couple of those for sure.
Okay. So how does somebody, for example, I don't know, I'm asking for a friend. Somebody wants to get into ELR. What steps should they take? Like,
well, first of all, cocaine is probably cheaper. So we've been messing around with 22s a lot.
That's funny coming from a cop, but keep going.
I know, right? We've been messing around with 22s. So I would say if you really want to and you don't want to make the huge financial investment, get a 22 and do some ELR 22 stuff. So we'll shoot, our 22s out 300-400 yards. It's fun.
You're just trying to keep people from competing against you. I see what you're doing.
But you don't have to go down to the reloading rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking the real ELR.
Build a 375 shot tack and come on.
No, but I mean, I get that. You need a rifle, but how do you actually get in there? Because it's a team event, right? It's not an individual sport.
No, it's not. But you say that. So they did have a match on the calendar, and they postponed it due to I think they've tried to put it together too last minute. But they're trying to hold a match here in Texas where it's an ELR match, and you're not allowed to have a spotter. You go up there by yourself, and you have to spot your own misses. So you can do it that way too.
Well, I'm talking about King of 2 Mile. Somebody wants to, let's say I wanted to shoot King of 2 Mile next year. Mm-hmm. How would I go about doing that? Like
find somewhere that you can go shoot at distance is the main thing.
I have that.
Okay. Well then.
What's next?
Build you your rifle.
Yeah, but then I need a team, right? Like I need at least a spotter.
You need at least a spotter for sure. You need someone who's really good behind glass, and I'm really fortunate on my team. We've got some people who are really good spotters, and it's that is definitely important to have a good spotter and someone who's reliable and who knows left from right and all that good stuff.
Okay. And so pretty much two people is the minimum you need.
I would think so, yeah.
Well, technically one, right? Because somebody could show up by themselves and say, I'll spot my own shots,
They
right?
could, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Not wise, but you could.
No. And King of 2 Miles is a team match and where you have your shooter and your spotter. But at most of the matches, then King of 2 Miles is strict about that. It's just one person with one spotter. But most of the matches, I mean, there might be 3 of us up there spotting for a person. And that way, you don't miss anything. So all the matches have their own regulations. But
what about, I imagine if you have a team,
mm-hmm.
for example, let's say you and Robert, he can be your spotter, but you can also be his, right?
Yes.
So they both enter as shooters, mm-hmm. and then you just alternate roles, right?
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go. All right.
You need to try it.
I know. Robert's been bugging me about it. Wow. Well, now I can ask you for reloading tips.
That's true. We've learned a few things over the years, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine, I don't know how, obviously I've never loaded for a big boomer, so I have no idea how different they are, but I imagine it's the same would probably still apply.
The main difference is when the powder dispenser's going off, it goes off forever, and you just hear dollar bills going out the door.
Ding, 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 ding. Sounds
Yes.
nice. Sounds like a slot machine in
It does,
Vegas.
absolutely. You're just like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely interesting. So, all right. So, nominate. Who are you going to nominate?
Oh,
You can't be Robert.
What?
I'm joking. I want to talk to Robert.
Yeah,
I want to talk about the build and
He can tell you about the build and his incredible spotting ability.
I'm sure he's not going to talk about that. I do want to talk about the build and what's the trends. I mean, I'm sure the trends. I don't know. I assume they have been changing. The type of equipment that's being used. I don't know if that's just like in F class. It's evolving to this day. It evolves so fast. And I imagine ELR, because like the way Paul Phillips was talking about, is they just built an F-class rifle bigger.
Right.
They pretty much just built an F-class rifle. So you guys are pretty much using F-class rifles, just bigger. Right?
I think it's pretty close. I don't have a lot of experience with F-class, but I think it's pretty.
Well, I mean, single shot, long
Yes.
barrels, big barrels.
My barrel's only 32, so that's not.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a hunting rifle.
I know, right? Well, okay, and one other thing. So for someone getting into this, so Applied Ballistics is very generous, and they come to a lot of these matches with their mobile lab, which is gosh knows how many thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and they have basically a giant lab radar type machine that you shoot like 10 rounds, and they give you a custom drag model that's custom to your bullet coming out of your gun and what it's doing out to 2,000 yards.
Wow.
So you put that file in your Kestrel, and man, it's awesome. I still had to true mine a little bit. It wasn't like spot on plug and play, but once I got it trued and figured out, I was like, this thing's amazing.
Wow. So obviously Brian Litz and all them, he's very involved in ELR, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So who came? Okay, so you came in first. Who came in second?
So
Yeah.
Ryan Cheney came in. Let me look
That's
at my
what I
notes.
figured. Nobody cares about second and third.
No, Ryan Cheney came in second, and he did awesome. Jay Dvorsky came in third. Joe Kaiser was fourth. Ray was fifth. Jeff Meslin was sixth. Let me keep going.
Let's do top 10. I think top 10 because that's what you wanted to be, right? You want to be in the top 10. So let's
true.
let's give a shout out to the top 10.
Okay. Stanley Cutsforth was seventh. Paul Phillips was eighth. Peter Renwick was ninth, and Curtis Roman was 10th. And I'm going to go to 11 because that was my teammate. Oh no, he wasn't 11th. Hang on a second.
Oops.
Where did he go? No, I already said him. He was sixth. I'm sorry. Yeah, he was sixth. Jeff Meslin was sixth.
Okay. Well, good. How did Robert end up?
20.
Oh, 25th, you said.
Yeah. 26.
26th. Okay. Top 33%.
Yeah.
Top third.
Mm-hmm.
And in F-class, we just, as long as we make it on the first page, that's already a win.
Right. And you can cut that page however you want.
Cut and paste. No big deal. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for doing this. I know you've been extremely busy with all the paparazzis. There are a lot of people outside your door right now. You can't leave your house.
It's tough.
So, well, good. Thank you so much for the interview. And, let's get some more people out there. I mean,
Yeah.
Paul was thinking about maybe changing the rules a bit so they do. I don't know if you saw that interview where they do head-to-head competition to.
I did, and that could be really fun. So when we do our 500-yard match, it's like that. You're head-to-head, and all you have to do is beat the person next to you, and it's like a bracket thing. And
Right.
I think that could be pretty fun. And he's right. I think that would bring in spectators.
Yeah, and obviously eliminate the wind advantage.
Right.
The relay
Exactly.
advantage.
Sure, if you're shooting in the same conditions, that would definitely add a different element to it.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you so much. I will contact Robert and tell him that he's been nominated, so he needs to do it. He gets
Very
no
good.
choice.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Tonight I'm feeling me, gonna make an ugly scene. Tonight I'm feeling